What's up guys, it is StarFlorge here, and today we have a brand new Rift Mage build. Now this is the Rift Mage mine build where we utilize mines and a lot of the Rift Mage AoE CC to be able to destroy our enemies and control them as much as we can. Now also, just before we get into this build, a lot of people have been wondering, what do you do as a low level mage? Because you can't actually do these builds as a low level, so I'm gonna do that in a separate video to be able to get that clear and across so that everyone knows what to do as a low level mage before being able to try and create these builds. Now this is a level 29 build, 28 if you're a human, but can be reduced if you want to get rid of some passives, but also can be increased if you want to get more passives, because as everyone knows, if you go above any of the level caps I set, just go into all of the passives, because you don't want to change these skills at all. So let's start off in the Rift Mage tree. We're going to start off with Stone Fist that deals 500% weapon damage, has a cooldown time of 8 seconds and a cost of 50 mana, and it's also an impact detonator, which is extremely nice with Ice Mine. And then we're going to go up to Shatterstone, which means in an area of 4 meters around your target, enemies are knocked back and also weakened for 10 seconds, which synergizes very well in this build. Next we're going to go on to Veil Strike, which has an area effect of 5 meters of your desired target, cooldown time of 24 seconds and a really low cost of 35 mana. And we're going to take the upgrade Punching Down to reduce the cost by 15 mana even more, and also weaken enemies by 10 seconds that are hit. So as you can see, the mana has gone all the way down to 20, which is extremely useful. Then we're going to go down to Restorative Veil, which is in some cases a bit buggy. A lot of people have seen some bugs, some people have found it hasn't, but you regain mana based on the damage you deal to them as long as they are weakened, and this is supposedly 10% of that damage. Now it does work with basic attacks as long as they aren't resistant to your staff type, and then it will work with things like Stone Fist and Fire Mine, but people have said there have been some cases where it doesn't work with things like Lightning Bolt. Even so, it is a very nice passive to get, because when it does work, it's extremely useful and you can just shoot up your mana all the way to the top. Then we're going to go into Smothering Veil, which means any enemy weakened will deal 30% reduced damage, which is extremely useful for not dying so quickly, especially on Nightmare with Trials on, which is what I will be doing. Then we're going to go into Encircling Veil, which means your durations last 25% longer against weakened enemies. So that means burning, frozen, chilled, anything like that, paralyzed, it all works the same. They all last 25% longer, and a lot of the bonuses you get in like the Fire Trees and Frost Trees can increase bonuses by 25%. So normally overall you'll get 50% bonus duration on a lot of your duration effects. Then we're going into Twisting Veil, which means you deal 15% more damage to weakened enemies. Then we're going to go into Pull of the Abyss, which in an area of 6 meters, which lasts 12 seconds originally. With the upgrade we take, it lasts no time at all, it's instant. Has a cooldown time of 32 seconds and costs 65 mana. And the upgrade we're taking is Devouring Veil, which means it instantly wrenches them into the middle and deals 500% weapon damage. And the reason we take this is because we want to pull as many enemies as we can instantly into the middle, into the mines where we will be targeting. And if you don't have this, it won't work, because some enemies will be pulled onto the mines, some won't, so some will be affected and some won't, whereas with this, all of them will be affected, which is what we want. Then we'll go into the Winter Tree, which we're starting off with Fade Step, and Fade Step lasts 2 seconds where you are invisible and you can travel forward a short distance, has a cooldown time of 12 seconds. We're taking the upgrade Energizing Step, which means whenever you pass through a enemy, so it can be multiple enemies, you will gain 25% mana. So as long as if you pass through 4 enemies, you've got all of your mana back instantly. And this works really nice as a mage, because what you can do is get everything off your combo, and if they're froze, Fade Step through them and then you'll be able to get everything else off. Then we're going into Frost Mastery, which means freeze and chill durations last longer. We're mainly getting this for the freeze on the Ice Mine. which works extremely nice, and obviously we're getting some extra magic by unlocking this. Next we're going into a spell which is really what a lot of mages would do, even if you're things like a fire mage or a storm mage. Is winter stillness, which means as long as you are idle for 3 seconds, your mana regeneration rate is increased by 50%, which works so nicely. As a lot of mages will know, you need as much mana as possible at all times, so having things like winter stillness, fade step, bonus mana recovery from the rift mage, it all helps a lot. Next we're going into the ice mine, which has an activation delay of 3 seconds. It freezes enemies for 6 seconds once it's been activated and they have stepped on it. It has a 18-second cooldown time, and it costs only 35 mana. Now we're taking the brittle glyph, which means when the enemies are frozen, any enemies that is, so multiple enemies, all of their armor is reduced by 100%. Now the arrays have come out since the DLC, which destroys the activation delay, so they're instant, and you create 3 that all freeze. Unfortunately you can't get the glyph upgrade, but it sometimes helps in some builds. However, for this build, these single target mines, well, not single target, like just single mines, but with extra bonuses, work so much better. So if you really despise these glyphs, go for the arrays. But if you are doing this build and you're trying it out, please try these glyphs first. They work, I find it so much better. Then we're going into ice armor, which means when any frozen enemy or persistent cold spell like chilling or an ice mine is down on the floor, you take 50% less damage, which helps with mage survivability, seeing as they are cloth wearers, so you don't generally take a lot of damage. Next we're going into Inferno, taking Immolate just to get down to where we want to go. Flashpoint, obviously such a key spell. After you land a crit, your next spell cast doesn't trigger a cooldown period, and this itself has a 10-second cooldown period. And obviously, again, like all passives, you get extra bonuses, so we're getting magic on this, +3 that is. Then we're going down to Clean Burn, which again is one of those passives I find is extremely useful, which means whenever you cast a spell, all of your other active cooldowns times are reduced by 1 second. So once you've cast a spell, if it's got, say, a 10-second cooldown and you use another spell, that cooldown will get a 1 second of it just chopped off instantly. And obviously if you're casting spells constantly, this can help so much and just cut down on all of those cooldown times that we are talking about. Next we're going into Pyromancer, which means the burning and fear duration is increased by 25%, along with the Rift Mage one, which is another 25%, so overall it's around 50%. And we are taking the Fire Mine, which deals 1600% weapon damage, has the activation delay of 3 seconds, cooldown time of 24 seconds, and has a 35 mana cost. And obviously we're taking the Searing Glyph upgrade. Now, in some cases, being a Rift Mage with Pyromancer and also the weakened bonuses, this can actually be even more useful than the Flaming Ray, even when you're not using this type of build, due to the fact that this deals 200% weapon damage per second for 8 seconds extra, which is an additional 1600% weapon damage. But with these bonuses, you're getting an extra 4 seconds of this damage, which means you deal some more 200% weapon damage per second, which just helps a lot in terms of damage. And with this build especially, all enemies will be affected by this effect, so there will be so much burning going on, and it is so nice to see this work properly. Then we're going to the Storm Tree with the Energy Barrage just to get down to Lightning Bolt, which is something I haven't taken a lot, but in this build works really effectively to be able to deal a lot of damage to a single target based on AoE. So what it does 200% weapon damage and then paralyzes the target for 2 seconds per nearby enemies. So for every enemy nearby, the target you have cast Lightning Bolt on will be paralyzed for 2 seconds. So in a big AoE fight, you can lock down one enemy and just shut them out of the entire fight for quite a long time. And this has a cooldown time of 24 seconds and a high cost of 65 mana. And we're going the upgrade Exploding Bolt, which means if there are enough enemies, and I haven't done enough testing to know what this enough word means, but if there are enough enemies close enough to the striking point, a wave of force will knock all of the enemies apart from the paralyzed target away. And obviously if they're frozen they won't, but the initial target will stay still and all the enemies will be knocked away a bit. But the main reason we take this is because you deal an extra 200% weapon damage for every creature within 4 meters. Not only are you now paralyzing the target for 2 seconds per nearby enemy, you're also dealing another 200% weapon damage, which means you shut them down and blow them up at the same time, which works really well. Then we're going into barrier, which obviously everyone knows gives you a barrier of a certain number based on, I believe, a level. So for me it's 4,260. Anyway, it has an area effect of 4 meters, cooldown time of 24 seconds, and a cost of 50 mana. We're taking energetic defense, which means your barrier won't decay until 5 seconds have passed. So normally when you cast barrier, your barrier will instantly start to tick off and go down to 0. However, with this, your barrier will stay on for 5 seconds before actually decaying, which is extremely useful and allows you to be able to put a barrier on before a fight, get things set up, and you won't have lost all of your barrier already. And then for last, we are taking Guardian Spirit, which is a 100% barrier when you are about to take a fatal hit, and it has a cooldown time of 60 seconds. This works so nicely as a mage, as you are very susceptible to dying due to being a clothy. So in this build you can see we've got a lot of defensives, and this Guardian Spirit works effectively to keep you alive, and I've found usually once it's actually proc, you will be able to survive long enough for it to come back up. So that is the build finished. Quite a big build and a lot of explaining to do, but before we get into combat I want to explain how to use this build properly. So obviously put your barrier on first before doing anything, then chuck down an ice mine and a fire mine on top of each other in the most central location of your enemies, and then once they are down, wait for Pull of the Abyss to come up and then pull all of the enemies onto your mines so that they explode, targeting all of your enemies. Once this has happened, you can do anything. If there's a huge group, cast Lightning Bolt first, instant priority. Usually I maybe try and Phase Step if they are all frozen, because then you can get lots of mana, and then Lightning Bolt. Veil Strike and Stone Fist, both use them mainly for a defensive spell rather than offensive spell, because Stone Fist, obviously any enemies coming towards you can knock them back quite a bit, and then if there is a ranged enemy you can also knock them down so that they don't do any damage. But if everyone is froze, you can use Stone Fist to be able to get the detonator. And then same goes for Veil Strike. If anyone is coming towards you or there's any archers being a bit annoying, use Veil Strike to knock them down and get some AoE, or even just getting the AoE weaken duration on everyone. And use barrier as soon as you can. So I hope you guys got what you need to do for the build, and now let's get into some combat. So guys, here we go with the combat part of this build. So obviously there's 3 enemies here, 1 elite, which is going to be a bit annoying on Nightmare with Trials. You can see I put my barrier on and I found a bit of a central location to be able to ice mine and fire mine right there. Get some auto attacks off, and then as you can see here, using the Pull of the Abyss. Now the soldier at the back didn't actually get pulled in, but you can see the marksman in midair who got knocked up and froze, and obviously the elite there did too, but the archer just had that really awesome thing where they could just get stuck in the air. As you can see, the elite was running towards me. I put a fire mine. As he got a bit closer, I Fade Stepped through him, which then meant he ran into it and I was out of it. Put an ice mine down there, and now just putting the barrier on as well. Getting some damage off with the lightning bolt, but obviously not doing pretty much anything. Fade stepping to get back full mana, ice mine and a fire mine. Pulling them in, and again the elite just resisting absolutely everything, so I'm trying to do everything I can, knocking him back and pulling him in, and as you can see now he's getting a bit weaker and actually becoming susceptible to my effects. Now I did get him in my ice mine there to be able to stone fist him. get a pull down which did nothing but the fire mine shooting him up, phase stepping away, and then using the barrier again. Putting my ice mine down, but unfortunately not activating it quick enough, but fade stepping away so that he went through it to get chilled. Now again, I'm waiting for my fade step, so I pull him in towards me, put the fire mine on him, and fade step through him. Barrier back up, and then punch him down, keeping him and suppressing him over there away from me. Now as you can see, my knockback is working and everything is working again because all of his barrier is gone, and I've got my mines up so I can place them down, and then he will walk straight into them. Can knock him back a bit with Stone Fist, and as you can see here, this is just the chain CC of this build. Pull of the Abyss here, and as you can see, again, I've got my mines back up, which is ridiculous. So now I've had my mines back up, now I'm punching him down, so he's just sat there while my mines are still active, and it's useful to try and keep them away from your mines so that you get your mines back up. As you can see, I've already had my mines back up, got an ice mine down there, so don't try and put another one down because it just removes the previous one. And I keep CCing him, punching him down, placing mines down, and you can see how kind of broken this is in terms of CC on an enemy. Fire mine there, got my ice mine back up if needed, but the fire mine finishes him off. Really nice control there. That shows really what mage control can do, and also when there was the other enemy up, what I can do with phase step and barrier in terms of getting away along with my CC as well. So let's get into this part of combat. So obviously I'm going to start off with barrier and then pull the first target. I'm using the barrier to make sure that I don't take any damage while I'm trying to go into stealth. And as you can see, this is what I was talking about when they all just group up into a spot. So I'm going to ice mine and ridiculously quickly fire mine as well. Now you can see I can't pull all of them in, but I've pulled a lot of them in, and you can see all of the archers there got the little combo of the ice mine and the fire mine at the exact same time, and I've been able to pull them in there again to freeze everyone. It's quite funny watching them fly up in midair and then get froze at the same time. It's great. So they're all froze over there, putting some barrier on for survivability, because now, as you can see, they're very dispersed. There I was able to get a Veil Strike and also a Fire Mine to be able to get some nice AoE on those 3 melee characters coming after me. These two here, they're both really high priority targets due to the fact that they were heading towards me, well, the melee was, and the marksman was trying to range me, and marksmen are sometimes the worst thing to have against you. So as you can see again, I'm trying to keep them as down as possible I can with another Veil Strike. Ice Mine on the Archer. Veil Strike again, waiting to be able to put down the Fire Mine, and then Pull of the Abyss everyone into the middle. Another Ice Mine on the Marksman, because right now I'm focusing all my abilities on the Marksman, keeping him at CC. As you can see, he's just stuck there in ice, and finally I've been able to finish him off with a nice Fire Mine by freezing him. So as you could see there in that big fight, and this is with Nightmare with Trials on, I was able to CC pretty much everyone at all times constantly by Veil Striking, Pull of the Abyss, Ice Mine, and comboing with Fire Mine to knock up with Stone Fist to knock back, using the Lightning Bolt to paralyze a single target and get high damage, and then constantly Fade Step and Shield, Barrier. But as you can see, it is an extremely good 1v1 and also AoE build, which I think is one of the best mage builds I have made, and I find this build extremely fun. So please guys, go and check this build out. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.